Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Guinness World Records Gamers podcast. I'm your host Mike Plant and with me is Sami Cetin. Special guest this week, the UK champion of Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo. He'll be a big part of our On The Record section later, but he's going to be helping out through the rest of the show too. And as usual, our pair of... How do you describe you guys?
Well, we are champions of nothing.
We've achieved very little.
Jack Turner and Andy Loughlin are a pair of freelance gaming journalists. There you go. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. So if you're interested in catching up on our old shows, we're available on YouTube, on all major podcast outlets, including iTunes, and of course we're on Twitter. Just Google GWR Gamers and you should pretty much be able to find all our channels. Okay, on with the show. All right, so before we get to On The Record, there's a little bit to get to wade through yet. So we'll start off with the games.
Wade through.
Wow. Can't wait.
We've actually, there's some actually really good news this week, but we're going to start with the games we've been playing. Andy, this sounds interesting to me. Old Man's Journey. I've not actually come across that one yet.
So
Is this a game about your life?
yeah. Sadly, it feels like that right now. So I was having a bit of a trawl through the Nintendo Switch shop, which is not an experience that anybody wants to do, but I was having a little look around, boggling at terrible UI and design.
I would say that one day they'll fix it, but given the state of the other shops they've had in the past, they're probably never going to.
We are basically stuck with it. And it's kind of caught my eye. So Old Man's Journey, it's kind of, it's one of those very much, it's a game, but it's very much a story-driven game. You know, it's kind of bit in the vein of kind of Journey and kind of a lot of those kind of more Firewatch maybe is a bit of a stretch for this game, but you play an old man, obviously. Yeah.
Does he go on a? Does he stay at home or
he goes on a journey?
Oh, okay.
So it's got it's basically he's I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's got a kind of he's going through an experience and a time of life where he's reflecting, shall we say. The gameplay is basically pretty basic, really.
Pretty
basic. I good words bad. So you kind of obviously traverse him through the world, but the main sort of mechanic is you can move hills and mountains to kind of give him passageways.
So it's like Populous.
It's a bit like Populous, yeah. Well, there's no Peter Molyneux, thankfully, in this game. We love you, Peter, of course. So you basically are creating this path through him. But as a game, it's pretty limited. What kind of really got me, and I don't know whether it's the time I'm in right now, but the story kind of got me choked a little bit. You know, it's like it's got realms of, I don't want to give too much away, but it's got a bit of kind of Up, a bit of the Disney film. It's got a bit of like nods to kind of a sort of Hemingway, Old Man and the Sea.
I can imagine you just sobbing into a Switch.
I know, yeah.
Little sparks
on the train.
Why did he have to? No spoiler.
Why did he have to live a happy, fulfilled life?
It was like looking to the future. It was like looking into my life in the future, but obviously I can't sail, so he does a bit of sailing, so it wasn't really my life.
It sounds like the Old Man and the Sea, the game.
The book. Yeah, it was similar to that actually. Yeah, and like it's one of my favourite books as well, so maybe that was a bit of a resonance. But I think as a game, don't expect too much. But as a story, I find it really interesting. Like, I don't know, it's got a nice score. It's got a nice kind of texture to the graphics. It's about a couple of hours, and I think I got it for a £5. So you know, I mean that's less.
That cheered you up, no end.
Yeah, that's less than a movie. You know, or even a pint, you know, these days. So yeah, I did enjoy it, but do be aware the game bits are pretty limited to the point of kind of being not really existent.
Do we know if this is a new game or it's just one that you came across in?
No, I think it's relatively new. I think it's from the tail end of last year. Very small publisher who I've completely forgotten who it is.
Good research.
So good research as always.
Yeah. Props to them.
Didn't even look on Wikipedia. That's how limited.
I'm going to look it up now for you, just so we can actually acknowledge the publisher.
If you just want like a nice narrative experience, not too taxing, a good journey, an interesting story for a couple of hours on like a Sunday night, I think this game is kind of really good. If you're looking for something, a bit of a challenge, a bit of a kind of engagement, don't go for this.
Enlighten us, Jack.
Broken Rules are the publisher and developer.
Rules, yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I knew that.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, if you like that kind of like that journey, that kind of flower type things, where it's a bit more of an interesting story rather than not a huge amount of kind of gamey bits, it's pretty good.
Cool. Jack, you informed me earlier you've not played any games.
The only game I've played this week is Peggle on my phone, and nobody wants to hear about that. No. So you can just skip me.
Okay, cool. I haven't actually made a note of it, but I finished Undertale this week. Downloaded it and finished it in the space of 2 days.
Nice.
Enjoyed it. Really
How
good.
long did it take you?
2 days.
No, like hours. Did you say 48 hours?
No, yeah, it took about 2 train journeys, so about 5-6 hours.
That's not too bad, yeah.
My train journeys are long.
Deltarune doesn't come out, the chapter doesn't come available till the 27th, I think.
The Direct lied to us. I thought they said it was out now.
Because I tried to play it, and I was like, why isn't it working? But it doesn't come available until the 27th, I think. So I'll pick that up. What day is it today? Well, it's tomorrow. So we'll talk about the next week's podcast.
Yeah, because we film 2 days before we publish.
Spoiler alert.
Which doesn't help for when Pokemon Day is tomorrow and they're going to do a big direct about it. Anyway, we'll get to that. I also played a little bit of Anthem, dived in, Iron Manned it up a bit. Enjoyed it, it's Destiny all over again, but you can fly. But if you like that sort of game, I don't see why you wouldn't like this game. I know it's had a bit of bad press coming out, and people have said it's a little bit unimaginative maybe and things like that. I found it remarkably enjoyable.
I think one thing about Anthem, like you contrast that to Apex Legends, the way that Apex Legends was launched, and this feels like sort of all the things EA shouldn't be doing. I'm sure you've all seen that chart with here's what you will get and here's what you won't get, and all these permutations. Whereas with Apex Legends, it was very much out, and you wonder if Anthem had a little bit less of the lead-in, whether people would be a bit more lenient on it. It's particularly kind of the press. I don't know. Difficult.
I'm amazed it's actually out now. I thought it would. When they first showed it, it looked to me like it was going to be a PS5 generation games. It looked incredible. And there's no doubt that it doesn't look as good as it looked in those trailers. Maybe if you've got like an amazing high-end PC, it does. I don't. I've got a bog standard PS4, not even a Pro. But I mean, it still looks really nice. Like if you told the 10-year-old me that I'd be playing this one day, then I wouldn't have believed you.
Does it have the BioWare kind of story? There's
bits and pieces. So there's a few multiple choice answers you can give people. It's not got it the same way that Mass Effect had it. It's funny, this kind of game, a bit like Destiny 2 and other games of its ilk, and Fallout 76, which we'll get to in a minute. It feels like the game is like a year too early, and by the time they actually bring out what the game was meant to be through DLC drops and stuff, it'll be too late to then get the new audience excited for it. It's a funny one, really. Anyway, Sami, so you were saying that you've been playing a bit of Kingdom Hearts 3 between bouts of Mario Kart, obviously. So what do you think about that so far?
Yeah, so I've played Kingdom Hearts 3 briefly. I think mostly all the fans around the world, including myself, are happy to finally see this trilogy come to a close and happen. It's been a long time waiting, but from the initial looks of the game, graphically and mechanically how it works, I think it's definitely well worth the wait. So I really look forward to playing some more. I have prior to that, going back some months, I also played some of the interquel and the prequel Kingdom Hearts games.
I was going to say, do you actually understand what the heck is going on in the game?
It's quite complicated. I wouldn't be able to explain to you, but I would advise, I think people are saying try to play the interquel and the prequel game as well. I think Birth by Sleep they have, because they did re-release them all on PS4, so definitely give those a go, and I think it will probably help to understand where you're at.
About 300 hours of games to play before you can play Kingdom Hearts.
It's a long thing, but I guess it's worth the wait then, because it's been a long time. So
if I had time on my hands, I would do it, because I am really interested. I've got Kingdom Hearts 3. I played a little bit of it, but it's
sounds
really
like
tough
to get
into.
A Lonely Planet guide for this game.
I know,
like a rough guide or something like that. Here's the restaurants in the Kingdom Hearts
There's
area.
clearly a genius actually in the way that in Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy the games don't really relate to each other, because at least it means there's no barrier to entry for the next game. Whereas in this, we're doing like proper sequels, in story sequels in RPGs, you end up with this crazy situation where you've got to go back and play like 10 RPGs, all of which are about 100 hours long. Cool. That was what we've been playing. Shall we go on to the news?
Yep.
Cool. Right. First of all, quite apt with Mr. Nintendo t-shirt jumper here, but like Reggie, how do you say it? Reggie Fils-Aimé.
Feels
he's retiring as the American. I did actually write the whole thing down. The president and CEO of Nintendo of America was the official job title. It sounds like a good job title to me, doesn't it? I don't know what he's doing next. He's in a statement. He says it's a part that is filled with gratitude for the incredibly talented people I've worked with, for the opportunity to represent such a wonderful brand, and most of all to feel like a member of the world's most positive and enduring gamer community. As I look forward to departing in both good health and good humour, this is not game over for me, but instead levelling up to more time with my wife, family and friends.
See what he's done there.
That's going to win him some brownie points.
couple of zingers in there.
Ding.
He did a couple of games puns, didn't he?
He's done well.
Clever. So yeah, I mean, Reggie's famous, of course, for kind of, in a way, with Satoru Iwata sort of making the Nintendo Direct a thing and having like that zany side of Nintendo that suddenly came in, and maybe was it around 2012 or something like that when he started doing those. He was saying his quote before. It's
he's highly quotable, and there's the odd good meme about him. So his first E3, I think it was 2014, he came out on stage and said, "My name's Reggie, and I'm here to kick ass."
Oh, was it 2014?
I think so, yeah. Okay. Which for Nintendo, saying the A word on stage, that's pretty
edgy.
Yeah, that is edgy for Nintendo. And there's "My Body Is Ready," which he coined when he was using the Wii Fit, demoing Wii Fit on stage, which turned into a meme.
He did the dance, didn't he?
Did the dance. And then there's "Not My Problem" meme, where someone said, "How do you feel about the fact that the DS is outselling the PSP?" And he said, "Not my problem," and then it turned into a meme. So the internet loves Reggie. Hopefully the new guy coming in, hopefully he hasn't got a silly name. I really hope he hasn't got some sort of weird Nintendo pun name.
Pun, yeah. So Doug Bowser.
Sorry, what?
Yeah. How could this happen?
Nepotism, that's all it is.
It is incredible. So Doug Bowser has taken over as the president and CEO of Nintendo. He says, "Thanks everyone for your warm messages. As I look ahead to this new adventure, I have learned so much from Reggie. His love and passion for Nintendo, along with yours, will never be far from my mind." And then he posted himself as a picture on Twitter of him with Mario and Luigi tied up by I think it's like a GameCube cord. GameCube cord.
And then he kidnapped Reggie's wife and took off in a castle.
It is genius. You couldn't write it, could you?
It's good though that he's throwing himself into that role already, and he's obviously going to try and outdo Reggie for the memes and for the online points.
He's already a bit ahead, isn't he? I mean, how much do you need to do when you're called Doug Bowser?
Well, I've already seen him completely transformed by people on Twitter who then so the picture he had of Mario and Luigi tied up with him, and then he's got all of Bowser Jr. and that all there not tied up obviously because they're his mates and Goombas and stuff. And then people have put Bowser's face on him and flames everywhere and turned it into Bowser's castle. It's just I don't know. But I do hope that he's more than just like this one pun joke. I hope he's got more to his personality than just going, "Oh, my name's Bowser." It'd be sad to lose Reggie. He was so part of Nintendo, and then have someone who's a bit more a bit cold in comparison. So let's hope he can continue these kind of memes and stuff like that. But he should do. He's certainly got a good advantage with being called that. Next, so Fallout 76 is being improved as what they call a roadmap. You won't know this, but myself and Andy especially loves Fallout 76.
Don't get them started. We'll be here for hours.
So I really enjoy it.
They've actually they sent out a press release, but they've also just emailed basically everyone who owns the game. It seems so. They've said, "I'm back on a tale with true choice and consequences in Wastelanders, our biggest and most ambitious update for 76. Wastelanders will include a new main quest line, new factions, new events, new features, and even more surprises." So basically, it's just the game.
Yeah, I mean, so the big thing here for me is new factions, which says to me it's going to be finally what they needed to do in the first place, which is NPCs and a proper Fallout game. And I think this feels like they're basically going to wipe the face and reboot the whole game, and hopefully it will kind of kick on with some sales around autumn.
I printed out the roadmap for you.
So there's a number of different words. There's a PvP mission as well. There is new quests which just sound like the same. Pick up a load of audio recordings, which is fine. Some new features and some new modes. There's some new styles. So I think you can make moonshine. You can do.
Oh, I saw the picture of that. Yeah, there's a picture of them brewing up concoctions with alcohol, isn't there? But whatever, I don't know what advantage that gives you in combat.
I don't know what they're going to do either. I mean, Wastelands is the big one. I think Wastelands will be, if they're really serious about this game, that will be when they really kick it off and sort of try and save it. Interestingly, they also put in so basically, you know, legendary players. Now players can become legendary. So I assume they're trying to pull in those master players, basically, who are going to keep the community going while it's through here.
Well, that's what Sea of Thieves did. So it made it so you could, if you did literally everything, you became a pirate legend. And there's like the first guy to get it is, you know, became something of a celebrity on Twitch and stuff.
Then you can get.
So maybe that's what they're trying to implement. It's these days for a game like this, it's all about Twitch and getting people watching it and playing it. Sea of Thieves has gone through the roof in popularity because of Twitch. So and you could argue Fortnite did similar.
But the problem with a lot of this, I mean, I think Wastelands will be interesting, and I'll keep an eye on it. You know, I'm going to keep it and see what that's like. But it's still the same engine, and it's still the same underlying game, which has got quite a lot of issues.
Yeah, it's the netcode they need to sort out first and foremost.
Yeah. Apparently, they've done a lot of stability changes. They've improved kind of a lot of the bugs that were there for a while, and also improved the kind of performance of the engine. So it's running faster, quicker, snappier. And assume it doesn't crash every hour, which is...
And load stuff in super slow at the start. So you look naked at the start and then suddenly your clothes load in on you.
But this is a real kind of statement of intent by them. I think their statement was... I wouldn't say it was contrite, but it was certainly acknowledging that things haven't gone well. And it was kind of... it felt like a bit of a plea to the fans to stick with them with this franchise. We all love Fallout. We all want it to do well, and it's like I think that's why it hurt more when it wasn't quite what we were hoping for. But hopefully this run up of good content, and then all the way up to the Wastelands, where it's a proper, almost like a kind of Nuka World, Far Harbor type extension that just brings this new. The real game, which is like maybe even if it's just 10 hours with a good storyline.
So they're saying that's the autumn, right? So autumn,
yeah. So I assume that it is a story DLC. I mean, if it's got new factions in it. If it's just picking up audio logs again in this different part,
they can't do that again, though, can they? Because like the outrage it'll be like if when No Man's Sky came back with that massive pack and that massive DLC drop, and it was just the same again.
Just the same thing again.
So that's what they need, that level of turnaround to sort of bring it back again, don't they?
But also this is a major property for them. They need to pull back good feeling because Fallout is still one of those games that can drive a huge sale, and you can't just abandon it. So they need to do this. They need to get it right.
Do you think they've got any goodwill left? Or do you think people have moved on already?
I think Bethesda does. They're always the underdog, aren't they? That's the thing about Bethesda, because they're not seen as having that same. Even Ubisoft seem to have a bit more like they've just got more money, more clout. Whereas Bethesda's always been on the outskirts of it, and they get a lot of goodwill from that. I think. A lot more than say Sony or especially Microsoft gets, for example.
And I think gamers are pretty loyal. They'll still want to give it a go and give it a try. And as long as they don't absolutely ruin it and get it right this time, then I think they'll pull people back. And then you think you're going into Christmas, you've got like basic bonus revenue from sales of a game that would look dead, and then you can kick on to an actual proper Fallout 5. In a couple of years' time, and people will be like, yeah, okay, I'll buy that.
The other Fallout news, of course, did you see that there's this a ticking down timer on Amazon where it looks like it's going to be revealing Fallout 3 or New Vegas remastered. So there you go. That's another bit of content for you. The other last bit of news, just to hit upon here, is that Apex Legends. I don't know if you read about this. So it turns out the hitboxes on the characters are all kind of very, very different. So the hitbox is when you're getting shot at, where the bullets can hit and what they can't hit. So if you're standing with your legs apart, then the bullets go between your legs, because it's how these days that's how like amazingly detailed the hitboxes are.
Right.
Whereas back in the day on Quake, you just get hit no matter where you were. And it turns out that all of the characters have the same number of hit points, and they have the same. They take the same amount of damage.
Right.
But some of them are like massive hulking people. Like there's a character called Gibraltar, who's just like it's like a mountain.
Oh, Rock of Gibraltar.
And then exactly, and then there's characters like Wraith, who is this like very slight woman who also then crouches as she runs. So her hitbox is like minuscule. So there's absolutely so this kind of breaks the game for competitive play. Because everyone will just pick the three smallest players, and no one would ever pick anything different. Because why would you?
Yeah.
So they like basically already like so there's like a dedicated Reddit thread about this problem already, as you might expect, because the game's super popular. So it's It's coming out with, like, there's a lot of people complaining about this on Reddit and showing the differences in the characters. The community manager, which basically means he probably dips in and out of the forum at EA, this guy called Jay Frechette, said the team was aware of the issue and has been discussing it already. Well, he couldn't give any idea as to what the team is planning to do, but he says we'll hear something fairly soon. So obviously EA is aware, or Respawn I should say is aware, so they'll be fixing it. But I just found it just curious for a game which is all about being as competitive and surviving, that they've not from day one thought, oh hang on, it's not really quite balanced.
Yeah, and also like a big, massive hulking character being able to take exactly the same damage as someone like the size of their leg. You would have thought, like, is that like real life? No, it's not like real life, is it?
They need to either give him like some sort of bonus health, or like regenerating health, or a bit more armor or something to replicate. Because he's got this whopping big shield as well, which he's carrying around with him. But he
take more damage. I mean, that just like
just take a bit less damage. Yeah.
Well, you'll not be able to take more damage.
Well, it's like in Team Fortress when you're with a big hulking guy. Then you obviously you were a tank, and that's what you expect from a big hulking player.
You were slow and massive, and all that kind of stuff, and that's kind of principles of life and science and stuff, isn't it?
Principles of life.
This all said, Apex still pretty popular, so there you go. So I'll keep having a look at that. I enjoy it. I've been loving playing it. I just don't get any better at it because I'm rubbish, and I don't get to play it enough as it stands. Because I've been playing Anthem.
Why can they never sort the matchmaking out? Everyone always says that about these games, isn't it? Like, I get absolutely killed straight away. It's like, surely there
is no negative bracket which I'd fit into. Though,
yeah, why don't they put all the really terrible people in at once, and they can all just shoot in the air? And
I think the irony is that's what they do.
You're still rubbish.
Okay. Let's go on to this week's listener letter. So this came in from John T of Manchester. He says, with Pokemon Day is upon us on the 27th, which is tomorrow, as we sit here, which has made me think about the new Pokemon Switch game. What is your list of musts that Nintendo and Pokemon Company must do with this game? So apparently since we sat here, Nintendo has announced there's a Nintendo Direct on Pokemon tomorrow for Pokemon Day. So that would have been kind of useful to have. We'll have to save that for the next show.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, go on, Nintendo. Do you not watch this show? So I think what will almost certainly be said is a load of stuff that now what we say will be contradicted. So anyway,
let's try and predict the whole Direct.
Okay, yeah, that's
well, you're our Pokemon expert.
That's true enough.
Yeah, you are. Well. Let me ask you this then. So,
hello.
Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, whatever it's called, Let's Go Pikachu, wasn't very expansive, was it? Very, very, very sort of, you were still siloed into what you could do in that game, right? So what about if this game is more like Destiny 2, or not even that, or maybe like an open
Destiny of Pokemon,
an open RPG, like Final Fantasy style thing. Do you think that would work?
I think that's what Pokemon was. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu / Eevee. I'm Team Eevee.
Right, okay,
it was quite divisive amongst the fans because a lot of people thought it was too basic, and it was too based on Pokemon Go in terms of how you caught the actual Pokemon. So it relied on throwing the ball with the motion sensor at the Pokemon, not a real-time turn-based battle. The trainers were turn-based battles, but the actual collecting Pokemon out in the wild wasn't, and that upset a lot of people. So I think this is being seen as, well, the next Pokemon game is being seen by the fans as the real Pokemon game.
Well, and it has been since it was first. Because what have they shown of it? Even a logo? I'm not sure.
Not much.
I think they might have just mentioned it once, might they?
So I think it'll probably. I imagine what they'll do is they'll have turn-based battles or the option to use motion sensors as well. Because actually, they sold the Pokeball accessory for Let's Go. I can't imagine they would then suddenly shut you out of owning that for the new game. Say, you can't use that. You can't use that 40 quid accessory. So I think they'll probably give people the option. I think there'll be a lot of ways to tailor the game to your own, how you want to play it, basically. So if you want to go hardcore and have, random battles and the full-on Pokemon, old school Pokemon experience, I think they'll let you do that. But if you want your handheld, I think they'll probably go down that route as well.
How many Pokemon are we at by now? Is it something like 600 or 700?
I think we're up to 800. I don't know. A lot.
So do you think they'll have every Pokemon and yet more?
That'd be crazy.
They'll be like Fist Guy and T-shirt thing.
I must have missed Fist Guy.
Yeah.
But
that's a different game.
I don't want to catch him.
Yeah.
But so yeah. I mean, I don't. It's difficult, isn't it? Because people are kind of bored with Gen 1 as well, and people want the later generation. So where does that leave Pokemon? You know, do they go back to an older generation? Do they use one of the newer ones? I don't know. I don't have the answers, Mike. You're looking at me like you're expecting.
No, yeah.
I don't know.
You said you predict what they were saying. I was hoping for mega predictions.
I don't know. I think they're going to predict. I think they're going to announce a game.
Oh wow!
With Pokemon in it.
Wow, insight.
I don't think it'll be Gen 1 just because that's what the previous game was.
Well, that limited you to just the ones in red and blue, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll see.
And I guess what they'll have to do then is what I always envisaged of the perfect Pokemon game would be like a sprawling RPG environment where you're going around and you can see the Pokemon in the woods and you can go into the woods and they're all like running around out away from you and things like that. Like, I think that's because it's been confined to the lesser powered consoles for so long on Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, whatever. It feels like this is really the first time that they've been given chance. I know Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee were on the Switch, but it's the first time they've been given proper license just to make a HD Pokemon game from scratch. Really.
I mean, Let's Go is a remake of the first game. Really, it's quite a faithful one as well. I mean, can you imagine Pokemon in a kind of Breath of the Wild style?
Well, yeah, I mean
that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
That's the level that we're looking for, isn't it? Are you a Pokemon?
No, actually, it's another franchise I haven't touched, but Breath of the Wild I have, and I think certainly having the sort of open world feature, that's what a lot of people like at the moment. So perhaps try it with something like that or anything else.
What do you think the 3 Pikachu, the Pokemon they give you at the start, are going to be this time? What would it used to be? It was Charmander.
Fist Guy was the other one.
Yeah, Fist Guy was definitely there.
What were they? Bulbasaur and
Trevor McDonald.
Squirtle, that was it.
Squirtle, yeah.
Why is it always the Trevor McDonald with you?
It's obsessed.
I saw him in London a while ago.
Okay.
He's on my mind. I wonder if the movie is going to be.
There's a new trailer for that today.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds was doing it. It looks like Deadpool with Pikachu, doesn't it? Really?
Well, without the swears, I suppose.
Without the swears.
But yeah, no, it looks like he's got a lot of sass to him. But yeah, so there obviously already is a Detective Pikachu game on 3DS. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they maybe announce them for the Switch.
Yeah, or if they. I mean, I can't imagine they'll do something completely different, but it'd be nice if they tried something new with the franchise.
Well, maybe they could in the Switch game. Maybe they let you go to the city. I can't remember the name of it, but that game's set in a city. I don't know enough about Pokemon to know if they've had that city before. But yeah, I mean, I think there's just so much to do about it. And next week we can chat about all the Nintendo Directs. Pokemon
everything you've said is wrong.
Okay, cool. So now we're on to our On The Record section. So usually regular viewers would see that Luke is not with us this week. He's been replaced, although not permanently. Sorry, Luke. With Sami Cetin. So you are the holder of Super Mario Kart record. So I've got the exact... So let's read it in Luke's voice. That very authoritative.
Go on.
I'm not going to. So the fastest... So you have 2... Guinness World Records titles. The first one being the fastest completion of Mario Circuit 1 in Super Mario Kart, the PAL version, which obviously is the European version. So the text for this is on Christmas Day 2013. Is that actually true?
Yeah. So it's just 20 minutes after midnight. I've been playing for a few months and
just consecutively without putting the control.
An hour or two session every other day for a few months, and then a 20-minute session just after midnight. I thought, let's have a quick go before I go to bed for Christmas, and then it happened. So that was quite nice.
Wow. Sami Cetin, you of the UK, set the fastest time on Mario Circuit 1 on the Mario Circuit 1 track in the PAL version of Super Mario Kart, obviously by Nintendo, 1992 on the Super Nintendo. He completed the time trial in 57.9 seconds, 90 that is, as verified by MarioKartPlayers.com/SMK. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then his second record for the fastest completion of Mario Circuit 1 in Super Mario Kart again, but this time on the NTSC version, the American and Japanese other territories? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically all of North, South America, Central America and Japan.
This is what's known as the good version of the game, because obviously we got the rubbish PAL version in our country, but there you go.
Come on, that's not fair.
It was faster anyway.
It's debatable. Yeah.
Well, let's leave that for a second. So on the 23rd of November 2014, so you set the fastest time on Mario Circuit 1 on the NTSC version, completing it in 55.97 seconds. So you're the only person to ever get below 56 for the NTSC version and below 58 seconds on the PAL version, which I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Also, so your record is, obviously we just read the dates out, so your record has stood for 4 years and 97 days for the NTSC version, which is like a long time to hold a record that a lot of people are going for. However, I did just see that there's a chap called Julien Homier, is that how you say it? I know he was a friend of yours, who's French, who's just, as of the 18th of February, got himself into third place on the overall Super Mario Kart Circuit 1 track at 56.34, so he's only like a few hundredths of a second behind. So do you watch all this and are you worried?
Oh no, not worried at all. I mean, because I manage the time trial world rankings site, which I've been doing for 20 years. So Julian and many of us have been on there for a long, long time. So we're all good friends, and we've been swapping records back and forth. Obviously, we play all of the tracks as well. Mario Circuit 1 has been my favourite track, so I can say I've played that one the most. But there was a period going back 10, 15 years ago that I did lose the Mario Circuit 1 world record for many years. And then there came a time when I decided to go for it again and relearn the new strategies, and then I pushed really hard to get a really strong time on both versions, and that's held for a long time. But records with anything are there to be beaten, so if it does go to another member, then that's fine. I do have plans to go back to it to do some more. I was actually asked immediately after doing those times, because they're quite far ahead by quite a large margin, if I'm done with the track, and I said no straight away, and they were a bit surprised. So I figured they thought that breaking those barriers, but believe it or not, there is still more room left on the track to go even further. But I'm in the midst of playing some of the other tracks I have neglected a bit more on NTSC version at the moment, so that's what I've been busy with. But there's definitely more to do there. Certainly not worried about losing records. There's a lot of talented players, and Julian is one of our best players on the overall basis at the moment. He's won the World Championships 3 times in a row, and he's just got the NTSC overall title based on an average finish system of all the tracks, and Karel from Holland has got the title and PAL on the overall. So them two are very close at number 1, number 2 for the other tracks.
So let's talk a little bit about your record breaking track here. So I think we've got it that we can we'll splice this in so you can actually watch it on the video version on YouTube. So there's what I would now describe as the kind of go around the corner, turn into the corner, turn out, whatever it's called, like a power. What do they call it in the later games?
There's the power slides.
Power slide, that's the word
mini
I'm looking
turbos, for.
So this exists in Super Mario Kart all those years ago, which I didn't ever realise.
Well, the power slide.
But the one where you turn in and out and turn in and out and you get like
a snake and type system.
What are you doing?
No, but so it gives you like a little boost in speed.
I was aware of snaking back in the day, but I could never replicate it. It's quite
on
difficult.
Super Mario Kart.
It's quite difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean I think in Japan, basically, when the competition started on the first track, they discovered it back then, but because we didn't have internet facilities that we have today, that communication hadn't gotten around to the Americas and Europe, so we were playing it just the old school way of just hopping around the corners on the shortest racing line, staying on the track. Many years later, we learned from the Japanese players of these strategies, so we started using them and doing it on all of the tracks as well. So now we've pushed the records really, really far. But yeah, it was actually existed in the original version, and you can use it to cut off-road portions and cut across other terrain like light water on the Cooper Beach tracks, snow on the Vanilla Lakes, and so on.
I think this is beyond your.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Have you not watched when you watch it, you'll see that it's just on little, and it'll just go really, really quick.
Yeah,
it's almost it's cool anyway. I was going to ask you. So also on your track, what's really obvious is you just don't care about going on the sand. You'll just go straight through the sand with Donkey Kong, which then made me think. So,
wow,
is Donkey Kong the only character you ever go with? Is there a difference between him and Bowser?
No, they did some work, some research into it. So there's 4 different character types, and they've got exactly the same stats. So Mario and Luigi are exactly the same. Then Princess and Yoshi are the same. Toad and Koopa Troopa are the same, and Bowser and Donkey Kong. The only difference is the sprites. So there's some people who prefer to use Bowser or Donkey Kong because of the shape of the character. Maybe when you're looking at them cutting across corners and things. Right. Some people just pick a character out of preference. So if you wanted to know why I picked Donkey Kong, I thought he was a little bit more the unusual character out of the bunch, because they'd recently had Super Mario Brothers 1, 2 and 3 and Super Mario World, so you had more of the straight Mario characters in the game. Donkey Kong Jr., which is the one in Super Mario Kart, was from an older classic game, and they brought him back in. So I saw that was a bit more unusual character, so I decided to use him. And the magazines back in the day, most of them said Bowser or Donkey Kong fastest on the track. So I just stuck with the one character. But when we play at the World Championships, you've got your opponent, you can't both be the same character, so we just alternate using Bowser or Donkey Kong for racing.
So it is only those 2, basically. Yeah. The others can't hold the candle in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are the fastest racers. You just pick one or use both on different tracks if you wish, and that's fine.
When you're doing a time trial, I'm trying to remember back now, do the items still appear in the time trial mode?
Not on the Super Nintendo. That's the only one in the whole series where you don't have any mushrooms. It's mainly from the 64 onwards they introduced Mushroom Boost, which you can use. So that complicated things, because you could take more shortcuts and things. And Mario Kart Super Circuit has very close mechanics to Super Mario Kart SNES, but because they have mushrooms in that, it opens up a lot of very glitchy tactics that you can use as well, and you can still do the off-road boosting. So we're quite lucky with Super Mario Kart. It's got a bit more just straight driving, even though we are boosting off-road quite a lot.
They were saying before that there's people who refuse to take the shortcuts on it. So you know, like on that track, if you know it well, there's the bit where you can go around and there's the pipes, or then there's a bit of sand, and like you'll drive straight through the sand. But there are some people who were so like they want to be just on the track, and that's another subset of records.
The purist.
Yeah, for the purists.
Yeah, we've got, so there were a lot of people back in the day when we discovered about the off-road boosting. There was a big divide. There's a lot of people who said, no, I don't like this, just want to stick to the normal thing. So straight away we had a good solution. We had the boosting, we actually call it new boosting techniques, or NBT for short. So we have non-NBT, which is just the old school driving. So we made a separate ranking page for records, just normal sharp driving, so people can play that as much as they want, and then the main ranking with kind of do what you want, boosting off-road. So there's 2 rankings as a solution for both, and obviously going back to Japan where they discovered it, the official strategy was using the off-road boosting. So obviously we still want to honour that and keep pushing this as the fastest method to do records in the game.
Speaking of shortcuts, I always had a debate with my friend about Ghost House 1. Is it quicker to take the feather and jump over that little bit of space, or is it quicker to slide around the corner?
You can do even better. You can just jump. You can just jump with the R button on time trial. You can just about make it.
If you're going fast enough, yeah, I've seen that as well.
So you can do a mini turbo to enhance that, give you a little bit better chance, but you can just do it with a well-timed hop.
And that's the fastest way around that track, is it? That used to be my favourite track as a kid. I loved that.
It's a good track.
Really?
Yeah, because it's really challenging when you're rubbish at it as well. Because if you hit the side, obviously you tend, you get knocked back first, and then you probably just drive off the track the next time you start, don't you? Whereas I was somehow over the years got really good at it, so I could go around without hitting anything. So I'd usually win that one, which is why I liked it.
I've got a slightly controversial question for you.
Yeah, sure.
On the record, what are your thoughts on the introduction of the blue shell?
Blue shell. Oh.
Paxman strikes.
So yeah, okay, we don't have that blue shell in Super Mario Kart, thankfully. We do have the lightning though, which has caused some problems for players at the tournaments over the years. And about 10 years ago, there was an incident with, well, I'll call it an incident. It's a kind of a, I think it's 1 in 32 probability on any particular time if you're at the back to pick up a lightning. So that can pretty much ruin the race for the other person unless they get a lightning or there's a big difference in your position in the race. But the blue shell, yeah, I think when I've used it in the other games or been hit by it, it does kind of turn the race around quite easily. So there's a lot of people who like to use it for fun, or I think some of the other games I've heard that they've found ways to dodge them as well. I don't know which ones specifically, but some of the later versions you can. But it is quite a race destroying item, unfortunately.
In many ways, you're almost better off keeping to the back for a little bit, because you get better items when you're at the back. So there must be a little bit. It's almost like a cycle race where you're part of the, what do they call it, the peloton, yeah, that. And
Oh, that's in the war.
So the tactics in that is like when to go, when to stay back and stuff. So it's a bit similar to that.
We do have that in Super Mario Kart, but luckily because the blue shell, and they also have, I think the new games have like the large bullet bill, which can shoot you from the back and catch up quite quickly, and various other items. So the red turtle shell, I think in the new games as well, pretty much goes around the whole track until it finds you. So it's pretty much you're going to get hit unless you have a weapon to back you up. But on the SNES version, it goes in a straight line for you, and if the red shell hits a wall, the red shell gets destroyed. So if you're around the corner, you'll be protected from the red. So unless the person has a mushroom or feather to do a big shortcut or something to catch up with, if you're a good driver, you've got more chance to win the race. But then when you're both good drivers, then you have to use tactics, and the same thing does apply. If you're at the back, you generally get, I think 80% of the time you get better items, but you want to be able to be close enough to your opponent that you can hit them. They have to be within your sights. So I think it's the most balanced game if you want to have a serious one-to-one competition. The new games are amazing, having several multiplayers all at once. I think that's really good fun. But when you've got one-on-one, then it's like chess. You've got to think ahead of the game what your opponent's doing and try to outwit them. You might have a red shell and they might have something else, but you've got to plan where you're going to use that and what you might get on the next lap or next 2 laps, and what to do next and where they might be. You've got to calculate this in your mind while driving as well, very quickly. So that's what myself, Julian, and the guys are doing when we're at the tournaments, and it's very tough.
We should actually say, so you're talking now more about the actual World Championship games rather than the time trial. So tell us a bit about how the World Championships, where they are and what happens.
Yeah, so there's a very, very large community in France. So they started doing French tournaments 2002. Eventually that expanded into a European one by around 2008, and then that's when I first attended. So they held it in France for many, many years, and then it reformed into a World Championship. And then from there, it's in the last 2 years, well this year as well, it should be in Netherlands. They decided to give it a different location, and they used an esports bar in Alphen, a town south of Amsterdam, which is very, very good. So it's all live streamed and everything else. So we have about 50-60 players from all around the world, mostly from Europe, but we do have some of the best players from USA. Occasionally a guy from Brazil comes, and we have a player from Japan, one from Australia who's been coming over, and we're hoping each year that we get more and more. So all the best players around the world meet up. We play over 4 days each mode of the game, and there's a gold, silver, bronze medal for each day, and an overall ranking with trophies for the top 3, and there's countless prizes and things, and this happens every year in August, so it's great fun.
I bet we're all thinking we could win that.
That's not what I was thinking. No,
I was just going to ask, what would be your, if someone's looking to get into speedrunning Mario Kart, what would be your top tips for a new starter?
Well, obviously we have the time trial world rankings, which I manage, so I'd recommend to join that, because Super Mario Kart is more about the driving. You do have to learn weapon tactics if you want to compete in multiplayer as well. But I'd say just play time trial regularly, and definitely biggest tip I can give is to play all of the tracks evenly. I think the mistake everyone made back in the day was playing, as we mentioned earlier, Ghost Valley 1, the same kind of favourite easy tracks, which are good to drive at full speed around. Some of the neglected tracks might be the ice ones and things like that, which people don't like. But once you can learn these tougher tracks, you can literally drive fast anywhere, and you'll be ready to compete on a multiplayer basis as well, or do speed running. And then if you can have an opponent who's at a similar level to you to train with, so I have some people, including my niece at home, then you can actually do racing and things at home, and perhaps go with a group of people to the tournaments and take part.
We were talking before as well about, like, you know, esports and the way it's all risen and everything. If the internet existed back when we were all like 8-year-olds playing Super Mario Kart back in, was it 92? Did I say? It would have been a very well, yeah. We would all have still been terrible, obviously, but it would have been a very different. Like now, like you're saying, there's 60 players coming. There'd be, you know, thousands of players probably, and millions of pounds on offer. And
be ridiculous, because I did some research with one of the Japanese players a couple of months ago, and about 2/3, I think it was 2/3 of the entire, maybe a third or 2/3 of the entire game sales were actually in Japan. If you think about population, you think Europe and USA, they did get a lot of copies of the game, but the competition was absolutely massive there in 92, 93. So had we had, you know, global communication to the level we have today, it's unspeakable what we could have had.
Yeah, just somewhere to
really,
post your times up, which just
we just didn't have anything. They had a competition on the one track there, and then obviously 5 years later websites came up, and otherwise there was the odd competition in magazines and things. But otherwise, some countries had their tournaments and expos, but not everywhere had them.
It's funny because actually, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still selling tons on Switch. It's like, last year I think it was still one of the top sellers on the Switch, despite not coming out last year, if you know what I mean. So it's, the game is massively popular, but even that game doesn't really have like the esports thingy that you expect it to. Or maybe it's because it's not competitive, because it's, like you say, it's a little bit broken because of blue shells and this, that.
Yeah, I mean, they did a launch tournament at EGX a couple of years ago. I was there running something on the side. I mean, it was very popular. There's a lot of people there, but I think obviously the game has evolved. I haven't really been keeping track, but there's a lot of new tactics and things, and people are playing it for records all around the world as well. But I think it's still very active. I'm just not sure. I haven't had any visibility on what the multiplayer side has been doing. I think people play online still quite a lot, but I haven't really had a look into it too much.
So do your skills like scale? If you're really good at Super Mario Kart as you are, do you find that other games, like what's the logical leap if you're, do you find yourself just naturally brilliant at every Mario Kart game, or is there some that are difficult to master even for you? Or?
No, I found that similar games like Mode 7 games, I mean F-Zero on the Super Nintendo was a similar game, so I became quite good at that as well. Mario Kart Super Circuit was very similar to the SNES one.
Game Boy Advance one.
Yeah, so, pardon me, Game Boy Advance. But I did also play Mario Kart 64 back in the day as well. We didn't know back then how long the franchise would go on for. Everyone wanted to try the new 3D Mario Kart. So I did actually get to a very high rank and briefly number 1 on the time trials there before I retired from it in 2002. And then when Super Mario Kart Championships and things came about, that's when everyone started getting on the scene on the original again, and we started having meets more often in the UK and Europe and further out as well. And I also had the opportunity to go to AGDQ a couple of years ago with Karel from our rankings, so that was quite nice. We did a speed run on NTSC time trial. That was a very nice experience as well.
So what does the future hold for Mario Kart speedrunning and such, do you think?
Well, I've been updating the time trial world rankings for 20 years, so I'll keep doing that forever probably. And hopefully we keep getting more activity, more people involved. I'd like it. There's a lot of us who'd like it to be pushed forward into the esports scene more, and I'm really happy that we've got a venue in Netherlands, which is an esports bar. I think it's the right direction to go, which most of us have discussed. And we did get a lot more visibility on the live stream because there are still lots of people around the world who just don't know that this is happening for the original. But we are bringing more people on board, and there's new players who want to come to the championships. So I know a lot of the players who played back in the day in the 30s and 40s and have other commitments now, but there are still a lot who would like to come back in and take part.
And sorry, as we were also just to finish, you were talking about your awesome games done quick runs. So how did that compare to your average day?
Yeah, I mean, I was very, very impressed. My friend Karel from the Netherlands had been there once before with Florent Lecoine from France, because they did a GP speed run, I think it was a year or two before. So we applied and we got accepted. So we did about a 30-minute long run, 2 televisions, and we did a run side by side on time trial mode for NTSC, which I narrowly won. He made a few crashes on a couple of tracks, but mainly I think the equipment was really, really good. Fantastic. They had no lag at all on anything. You had earphones on which could drown the sound out, so you could really focus. And they had a really good training room which you could just plug a console in and practice your game. So we did a lot of time trial there, and it was just a really fun week and nice breakaway as well. And you got to meet lots of amazing people from around the world who are in the top 5 or so in whatever game they're playing in. So sometimes when we were playing in the training room, you just forget the kind of immense power you have in that room. They weren't just regular people playing the games, they were literally world champions for 50 odd games that was going on at the time. So that was pretty cool. I did enjoy my week. I'll definitely go again. I recommend it to anyone who hasn't been.
Do you take your own control pad wherever you go?
Yeah, we all do. Unfortunately, the SNES control pads, they do break quite often, so they do need repair, and we do need to get more on eBay and things, and so that's a bit of a concern. I try to be as gentle as I can with the pads. Some of them have lasted more before I have to order a new one, and and start again. But we do take our own pads, because obviously at the tournaments they don't have, I mean, they provide televisions and things, but we do need to bring our own equipment.
I was more thinking it was kind of like, it's like a snooker player having his own cue. You must get very used to that
flight
one
case.
Yeah,
with the old
little Super Nintendo shaped case.
I'm thinking like, I think you see in the movies like 10-pin bowling, people have like their name in a bowling ball.
Yeah,
that's
what
it's
you
kind
should
of comparison to that. I think some people have it's a nice little thing to do, and
like
we all have sort of t-shirts and things like that as well.
Can you use like a different control pad if you want to, or does it have to be the official Nintendo?
Well, yeah, some people do use third party. You can't use any pads with any turbo buttons. But the thing is, they're not usable for Super Mario Kart on the SNES anyway, because it's very particular jumping and driving. So, but the official pads do work best. Some of the third party pads have L and R buttons for the jumping, which indent really strangely, and they just don't feel right. So I've tried to use them before, but I always prefer to use the official Nintendo logoed Super Nintendo pads, and just try to be gentle with them. I think more important is the CRT televisions for like all retro consoles, because you need those because they have obviously zero lag. I think there are some monitors which can be adjusted in a way to work with near enough no lag, but we're just trying to look after all the CRT televisions at retro events as much as possible, because they're more like gold dust for doing anything with a retro game.
What did you guys call the start? You know, the mushroom. Well, as kids, we used to call it the mushroom start.
Superstar.
All over the place.
Does it have an official name?
I don't think so. I've used to call it Zoom Starts, and some people call it Boost Start. I think at the tournaments, we'll probably call it Zoom Start. I think when we're playing, we don't think about it. We have names for various things.
Do you ever miss it anymore, or is it literally just wired into your brain?
No, the Super Mario Kart has one major flaw in it. It's got quite an awful, on multiplayer mode, it's got quite an awful zoom start timing. There's actually a slightly different timing on different tracks, and we still don't know why. Some of the newer Mario Karts, they have like a kind of an exact point which you can nearly not miss it at all. I think it's like on a second number 2 or something that comes on the screen, but it actually does vary, so it doesn't matter how good we are, we always miss. If you get half of them in a tense race with your opponent, you're probably doing well.
I guess
I thought it would be and
the sound drowns out as well, because we've got all of us playing at once, so sometimes we have to wait till one person's started a race, we're listening, and then you start, so you don't have beep 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 going on at the same time with all of us.
Could that make or break a run for you if you miss that speed start?
It can do. Like the item probabilities, going back to the being at the back on lap 1, which is quite interesting for most cases on match races. On lap 1 you have the equal probability on items. When it gets to lap 2, then if you're at the back, you have 80% chance you have the better item and chance of getting a lightning. You never get it at the front. So some races there are some quite big shortcuts or boosts you can do with a mushroom to catch up and close the gap. You'll lose probably 3, let's give or take 3 seconds to your opponent. Some tracks you can close that gap quite quickly, but there's a few tracks like Ghost Valley 2 is an example. There is a feather shortcut you can do that's quite hard, but if you don't get that and the opponent gets a zoom start, you both have the same driving level, they probably will win that race, because there's no major tricks you can do to catch up. So whatever happens, it's still always better to get the zoom start, because if you both get it, then you've got a fighting chance. But if you get it in first place and you're in front, you can get a mushroom or some kind of a backup weapon, or you can get a red shell which you can twist around and fire backwards to knock them back and keep them from passing you. And also in front, because you have coins in Super Mario Kart, which I think they brought back in Mario Kart 8. So if you have 10, you have maximum speed. If you have less, your speed's a little bit slower. If you're in first, you get the coins more. So if you get the zoom start and the opponent misses it, you can get 10 coins and you can keep in front and maybe outrun them a little bit if you're faster. So time trial matters, coins matter, and then the whole chess game of the items matter. So there's a lot of things you've got to think of. And it's only just one-on-one, but when you're playing GP as well, you've got the computer there, even though you're not racing 8 human opponents like in the new Mario Kart. So you have to make sure you don't crash into the computer, and they do throw items at you as well, or block the road, and this does turn races around. So there's a lot to think of.
Blimey, who knew? As kids, thinking back to this game, I never would have thought it was this complicated, the back end of what was happening.
It's all on YouTube. If you watch, I mean, they've got a SMK I think the YouTube channel is called SMK Championships. There's tons and tons of videos. Just watch any of the matches, group stages, or any of the finals, qualify. You'll literally see an example of all of this happening, and you can see races turn around and everything.
Have any of you gone back to play Super Mario Kart since the SNES Mini
Emerald.
Classic and stuff? Yeah. So, was it what you remembered it being like? Or?
I think the first stage I was like, wow, it doesn't look great. Like I think it was on my TV in I think that's what made it quite stark.
You need the CRT though as well, don't you, to make it look its
yeah.
best.
I think it's just the kind of the whole pattern of it and everything like that, but it's also the fact it's like 50 inches is like, you know, it's kind of nowhere to hide. But it still plays really well. Like I was just back to, you know, when I was playing it originally, you know, like still as bad as I've always been. But I sunk hours and hours into that game, you know, like hours and hours, you know. It was one of those, like with GoldenEye when, you know, and then back even further, you know, kind of you just played for like ages with your mates and stuff like that, and it's just really tight. It's still really tight, isn't it? It's still really a good, really solid racer. So yeah, I think it's still fun.
What's the as kids, we never really used to play the battle mode because we were just all hopeless at it. But competitively, what does that look like? Are they amazingly accurate? And...
Yeah, battle mode is not my favourite, but I have in the recent years tried my best to improve my level because I was mainly a time trialer and a racer. So normally I get to like quarterfinals. A couple of times I make the semi-final in battle mode, but it's literally it can be a long session. If you get to a final, it's like first to 11. You could be playing for 45 minutes, and you have to literally watch your opponent's screen all the time. And you can do lots of things where you can press jump to dodge a red shell at the last minute, or grind against a wall to get rid of the red shells and things like that. And yeah, it's very fast paced, and it's very, very easy to a little bit switch off just for a moment, and then your opponent can catch you out. So you have to keep the pressure on. The other mistake a lot of players make is that you just play too defensively. You keep running away from your opponent, and they get another item, they keep coming for you. So you need to go on the offensive and attack them. Then they stop and they can't fight back, so they have to go defensively. So sometimes it's very easy. I think that one you really have to concentrate a lot. So with the matches, and some players are really, really good. They can literally dodge so many things. It takes a long time to hit them.
You must also see some amazing green shell hits, like sniper hits.
We have to practice firing diagonally. Sometimes you've got a blind spot on your left, but you know the opponent is roughly there. You just jump sideways, fire your shell. Occasionally you do hit them as well. So we've all done those shots, and sometimes you need to take a shot. The green shells do stay on the course though for a while, and the problem is you can get hit by your own green. Sometimes it comes sideways out of nowhere, and then you lose a balloon. Then your opponent's near you, they've already got another shell and they're close by. You're going to get hit again, and sometimes the match finishes quickly. So sometimes players will leave items behind on the ground rather than firing them forwards as a tactic to not have too many things around. So you have to change your style as well quite a lot to not make it obvious to your opponent what you're doing. So another chess game, but a very different one to racing.
Yeah, and like the whole kind of cat and mouse type thing is quite interesting, isn't it? You know, I can remember playing that mode, and you would just be so kind of like edgy. It was a bit like playing GoldenEye, wasn't it? You know, like where are they? Like can't see them. Yeah, it's really good fun. And like there was, how many courses were there for that? I think
four.
There was only four. Yeah, wasn't that many, was there? Like
there was the castle one, like Bowser's Castle, wasn't there? Was there the Mario Circuit?
Yeah, there's a Donut Plains, Cooper Beach, Vanilla Lake, and the Mario Circuit. So yeah, I think then in the future they probably went on to other ones with the future games.
What's cool now is obviously they bring back some of the games from some of the old classic circuits in the new game. So do you ever go back and like revisit in HD or whatever?
Yeah, I mean it's just been nice. It's just nice that they do it, so the new players, the younger generation who play new games, can see what the old tracks were. And sometimes some younger generation players do decide to pick up the SNES. I mean, we've got most of our age group who play this competitively are kind of 25 to 45 years old, but we've got some younger players like my niece Layla, who's nearly 20 now, and so I got her into the game. It came out long before she was born, but I introduced it to her. But her friends, for example, might have played growing up with the Wii or the first DS console, for example. And we've got another friend, Connor, from the UK as well, who's also a university student, so he's got into it as well at a young age. And we're hoping for future, we can still get younger generation to get involved in Super Mario Kart if, we can promote it well.
What you need is the Switch to get Super Nintendo games, and then maybe everyone will suddenly start playing Mario Kart.
Yeah, there's different ways to get people on board.
So this does bring us swiftly, thank you for all of that, by the way, swiftly to this week's boss fight quiz, which is on Mario Kart. This week...
But this should be a breeze, shouldn't it?
No, it's not quite what you might expect, so it's not about records.
They're always changing the rules.
Well, no, I think you'll find the last 3 weeks have actually been quite consistent in their inconsistency, so there you go.
Wow.
It's based on what was written on the back of the box to promote the game? I think you've got multiple choices. So I wouldn't be that harsh. We'll bring back the lifeline, the power-ups, I should say. So you get to you can play as well. It's not just
please do, because we're going to need the help.
Yeah.
I might not know. Having looked at the boxes for all of them.
Just have them in pristine cellophane somewhere. So you get the traditional power-up. So there'll be the mushroom that lets you get it wrong once, as if you're large Mario, and then you become small Mario, so you can get it wrong once. You can get the invincibility star that basically lets you bypass the question, and then there's a fire flower that'll burn 2 of the choices away, leaving you with 2.
But we're not allowed to use our invincibility beyond question 3.
That's correct. Yeah, well done.
Isn't that fun?
I'm proud of you. All right, question 1. I don't think I've been too harsh with these. I think you'll be able to suss it out.
There's one that's nailed on. I'll recognise, which is. But I'm not going to say it.
No, say it. 'Cause we'll change it.
Yep.
I'm hoping to start easy for you. So
he always says this.
Take all the crazy action of the celebrated Mario Kart series and multiply it by 2! Exclamation mark.
Okay.
So your choices are A, Mario Kart Super Circuit, B, Mario Kart 64, C, Mario Kart Double Dash, or D, Mario Kart 8.
So it's got to be Double Dash.
Double Dash, I think it's two races on a car.
Yeah.
Is that your final answer?
I think so. I think we're agreed. Yep.
You're correct.
I can't remember, but let's just guess it.
It was Double Dash. So released in 2003 on the GameCube, of course.
Right.
I used to love Double Dash. I thought it was awesome at the time. Couldn't you play 2 players on the same cart?
Yeah. You had. It was very strange though. Like one would drive and one would use the items.
Yeah.
The only thing that bothered me with the game is that you didn't actually have a jump in it. Or you could just literally go straight into the power slides, which could make very fast snaking and things. Played it briefly, but yeah, that was I think the main unusual thing for me.
That was back in the GameCube days. Oh god, I love that game. I wish they'd bring it back for Switch. If you're listening, Reggie. I know Doug.
No, Doug now, isn't it?
Yeah. Reggie is listening. He's got all the time in the world.
All right, question 2. It's the greatest racing adventure of all time. Is that A, Super Mario Kart, B, Mario Kart Wii, C, Mario Kart 64, or D, Mario Kart DS?
I mean,
greatest racer of all time.
The greatest racing adventure of all time.
Adventure, 64.
I've literally got no idea. What do you think? What do you reckon?
That could apply to all of them, really. Once you got the franchise going, it could go anywhere. So that one.
I'm assuming it's not Super Mario Kart, because I'm assuming you probably know what's on the back of that box.
I should really know, because I've got a lot of collections of them, but I just don't sit and read them.
Maybe. Well, should we use?
I do remember some things on it, but I just can't remember that being on it, which is probably bad if I get it wrong.
You do have 3 power-ups to deploy.
Let's use a power-up.
We can use a mushroom.
Yeah.
So we use a mushroom. Should we guess 64?
Yeah.
And we'll guess 64.
It's not Mario Kart 64, I'm afraid.
Okay, so what's left?
A, Super Mario Kart, B, Mario Kart Wii, D, Mario Kart DS.
That would be the DS version, would it?
The DS version would have something about being portable, right? So it'd be take it on the road or something like that. That's a good tagline. They should have used that one.
Take it on the road.
Thank you.
The Wii version.
That'd be wave your hands.
Maybe it is the first one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Should we use another power up?
Yeah, should we fire flower it?
Yep. Fire flower.
Actually, you can't do that because only one.
Yeah.
The other one. Invincibility.
Yeah.
So should we go? Should we go Super Mario Kart?
Go for it.
Well. It was Mario Kart.
Oh,
Super Mario Kart. You should have stuck to your guns though. Good reasoning.
Yeah.
So what does that leave you with? Your fire flower still?
Yeah.
Fire flower still to deploy.
That's not great, is it?
So Mario Kart, as we said, released in 1992 for the Super Nintendo. Question 3, or slogan 3, I should say. Jump into the driver's seat with more tracks, modes, and features than ever before. So your choices are A, Mario Kart 7, B, Mario Kart 64, C, Mario Kart Double Dash, D, Mario Kart 8.
I reckon that's 7.
I would say 7 too.
Yeah.
The problem is each one had more tracks than ever and more characters.
That's a good point.
The further you went, so it was a bit irrelevant when you came to the 4th or 5th
That's
one.
a good point.
Because he'd already had many sequels, so...
I think 7 had a load of stuff though.
Bad deal.
Well, 7 was the 3DS one.
Yeah, then you had the paraglider thing, so you could float in the air and go underwater and all that sort of thing. Yeah. That introduced that in 7, I remember.
Okay, what are the options
But I
again,
just
Mike?
do not remember what I said on the
So, I mean, stick with your reasoning because you were doing well with that before. Mario Kart 7, Mario Kart 64, Mario Kart Double Dash, which I guess it ain't because we just had that.
Yeah. Tick that one off.
Good options. Mario Kart 8.
Maybe it's 8.
But like we say, maybe it is 8.
Should we do Fireflower?
Yep.
Fireflower, please.
Okay, I'll leave you with Mario Kart 64 and Mario Kart 8.
Should we go 8?
Yeah.
because 64 didn't have any retro tracks, but it just had 16 new tracks. So 8 is the thing which had loads of stuff.
So how many tracks were in Mario Kart, the first one?
20. But then obviously 64 had 16 brand new tracks, but I didn't have anything extra.
So
but then again,
Oh no, with real 64 out anyway. You're left with.
Oh, sorry.
oh, sorry.
What did I leave you with?
I thought you
can't
said
remember.
64.
Oh,
64
64 and 8.
Because
Yes.
so 64 had fewer tracks than the SNES version.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
so-
I had 16 brand new tracks, you could say, but then characters all the same except they replaced Koopa Troopa with Wario.
Okay,
I
so
think
that's
that was it. And Donkey Kong
number
Jr.
8.
Yeah,
to Donkey
Take a
Kong.
punt, guys. Come on.
Eight.
Yeah, it is Mario Kart 8. Well done.
Narrowed it
You
down.
pretty much just told us by saying it's not Mario 64.
I've got to get you through some questions.
Yeah.
I wrote these damn things. Released in 2014 for the Wii U, and then obviously again as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Switch in 2017 with a few extra bits and pieces. Question 4.
Right.
Grab the wheel and enter a new kind of race.
There we go.
Yeah.
Could that be Mario Kart Wii,
Oof.
Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario Kart 7, or Mario Kart 64?
That's a
I
smack
think that's
at
an
Wii, right?
obvious one,
Yeah.
Mario Kart Wii.
Yep.
It is.
Wii, please,
well
Mike.
done. Well done. So yeah, 20. Oh no, sorry, I've put the wrong date down, but whatever. 2011. Does that sound about right? I don't know.
No.
Wii, no,
2005.
2008.
I copied
or
and
so.
pasted the wrong thing
Yep,
for that one.
2008,
Yeah.
9.
Get
eight.
it,
Oops.
Chris Tarrant.
You just can't get the workies these days.
Okay.
And
Last
lastly, you've used all your lifelines, your
Right.
power-ups.
Don't need them.
Yeah.
There we go.
Question 5. Everyone's favourite characters are back and gorgeously rendered. Is that A, Mario Kart DS, B, Mario Kart 64, C, Mario Kart 7, or D, Mario Kart Double Dash?
That's got to be 64.
It sounds like something they would have said in that era. Gorgeously rendered.
Because it's the first 3D one.
Yeah.
SNES was mode 7. Everyone's back. Gorgeously rendered now.
It's got to be, right?
So what are the other options? 64, then Double Dash and...
DS, Double Dash, and 7 and 64.
Consciously
DS was going
rendered.
back to a handheld.
Sounds like it's a wall,
So-
doesn't it?
And you wouldn't say it these days, would you?
No,
Those
no.
graphics are gorgeously rendered.
Gorgeously plastered. I reckon it's 64.
I think it's 64 as well.
64, I probably could be wrong, but...
Are we happy?
I think
That's
so.
the final answer.
Yep.
Cool. It was 64.
Hey!
Well done.
Oh,
Well done.
yes.
Very good. Obviously released in 1996.
Another victory, Chalk.
Yeah, well, that's
3
good.
in a row, isn't it?
Yep, it is indeed. Hat-trick.
That is,
No prizes, though.
Yeah.
No, just pride.
I mean,
I don't
you
really
know.
feel pride, but...
Well, you should.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, that is all we've got time for this show. My thanks again to you, Sami Cetin, for
Thanks
your
very much.
insights into Super Mario Kart. Who even knew that
Yeah.
there was that much nuance in Super Mario Kart? I bet even the developers didn't know when they were making it. You guys have probably mined it more than they ever did. And thanks to you guys, Jack Turner and Andy Loughlin.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Until next week, like I said at the top of the show, you can tune into all our old shows just by googling GWR Gamers and having a look through our YouTube channel and our iTunes and etc. etc. And yeah, we'll be back next week to talk about Pokemon. I guess.
Yay!
All right.
How wrong Jack is.
Until next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.